So delighted on this episode to be peering into the tall grasses and having a wonderful conversation with author, poet, creator Genevieve Flynn. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for chatting with me.
Thanks for setting this up, Jason. It's we've already had a little bit of a chat, but I'm looking forward to having a great discussion with you. Thanks.
Yeah, but we've been talking about the doctoral path, and is it Genevieve or Geneve? Which way do I want to say that?
It's Genevieve. So yeah,
Genevieve. All
it
right.
makes no
I
sense,
see.
but but if you
I
call me
like it.
something close to it, I'll answer. I'm so used to. I've had Guinevere, so I call it Guinevere, and Geneva, um, Gilmere. I'm not sure where Gilmere came from. Doesn't even
Yeah.
have the same letters, but okay.
Well, Genevieve, we'll stick with that one, and glad to have you on. We're talking about poetry and speculative work and horror and all of those sort of things. I know that you've been widely anthologized. I know that if folks out there want to go and listen to your work, they can hear it on YouTube. They can see it at a variety of published spaces. And I am curious, what's connected you with the written word and creativity? What's kind of brought you into this fold of creating?
I think like a lot of writers, a big reader as a kid, pretty wild imagination, always daydreaming. Used to drive my mum a bit nuts. She like, you forget your head if it wasn't screwed on. But I had a really rich internal life. But I guess maybe the more revealing question would be what led me to specifically to dark fiction, to horror writing. Because I think
Hmm.
probably most writers would be like, yeah, I was a big reader, a bit introverted, lived in my head a lot of the time. But it's like specifically why horror? Um, I think maybe reveals a bit more about who I am. Um, I'm a Gen Xer, so I think that's probably the start of it, where you're left to your own devices. But also, there wasn't really that much parental control around what I had access to. So I remember watching like Charles Bronson and Clint Eastwood movies, like pretty young, and it's like all that blood and guts and violence. But I also grew up watching. I'm Chinese, born in Malaysia, so I grew up watching a lot of um, martial arts movies. So there's all that drama and a lot of violence and fighting. Um, but in Malaysia, the supernatural is very much part of the everyday world. So that I think that veil between the spirit world and the everyday world is pretty thin. Um, so that's kind of, I guess, probably shaped my brain a little bit. And I moved to Australia when I was about 8 or 9. And I suddenly became an outsider, an obvious outsider. And it was maybe 10, 15 years since Australia had abolished its white Australia policy. So there was quite a bit of negative feeling around people that were immigrants. So that kind of gave me that experience of being the outside and looking in. And then I think the thing that really cemented it was my friend handed me Stephen King's It when I was a teenager. She said, "You got to read this." And it was light bulbs going on in my head. It was like, here is a narrative about being a kid, being an outsider, being a loser, and that the world contains bad things and just the truth of these bad things. And I was like, this is what I want to read. I burned through his collection, just got every book that I could get my hands on. Um, and then it was like, this is what I want to write. These are the stories that I want to write. So that was a long answer. Sorry.
It's a great answer. That's a great answer. Stephen King also lives in my creative imagination, and I'm just soaking up all the work from him that I can. And I also appreciate that you're a person who writes short fiction, fiction that is sometimes geared around life issues, and you also write poetry. I'm curious about moving back and forth between those two approaches, between poetry and short fiction or nonfiction.
I think they all kind of inform each other. It's like if you're writing poetry, you're learning to capture a moment or an emotion and to use very um, evocative imagery and to try and really encapsulate something using a lot of metaphor. So I think that means that my writing is hopefully stronger and more evocative, but writing like nonfiction, then I would go down a whole lot of rabbit holes and get inspiration. Um, and short fiction, I think, teaches you to also be really concise. Like you can't faff about when you have only so many thousand words. Um, but I think it all ties together. I like not that many years ago, I would not have called myself a poet, despite having won some awards for it. But Lee Murray, my co-editor for Black Cranes, Tales of Unquiet Women, that's kind of launched my career and this whole groundswell of dark Asian women's horror, like writing. She kind of said, yeah, Genevieve, we're going to do this collection. I need you to produce 15 poems in, I think, 3 months. And I was like, Lee, I've never written poetry. It's like, not even a limerick, right? And she's like, no, no, you can do it. You can do it. So I think sometimes when you might be thinking about trying different formats or different styles or whatever, you might think, oh, no, I don't know about it. Sometimes you can allow yourself to play and then you never know which avenues it's going to lead you down and how it's going to improve your writing, things you'll discover about yourself. But it also helps to have a friend who's like, yes, here's this project, do it.
Absolutely. In terms of horror, dark fiction, what do those kind of approaches allow you to explore?
um I've kind of figured out lately that I write myself into existence, which is like a weird kind of thing to say. But I I think the more I write, the more I discover what I think of the world, what I believe, what scares me, but also like what makes me furious, what the things that keep me up at night. So that's a big one, exploring who I am and what I think of the world. Um, but the other this is extremely nerdy in terms of a writing person, but I also love exploring um, story itself, how it
Mm-hmm.
works, why it works, all the different ways that you can write, different story structures, different plots, literary techniques, all of that stuff, and just playing with that and seeing can I make it work? Why does it work? Um, that is one thing I've discovered that I really like exploring as well, and particularly with horror because I want to evoke that feeling of dread, that feeling of like almost like a dark revelation within a story where the reader has that holy crap moment. It's like this is what this story is actually about, and just whether or not I can use these tools to create that. So but I do have favorite themes as well. Gender, diaspora, otherness, intergenerational trauma, family dynamics, all that kind of stuff. I find it it comes up over and over again in my work. So yeah, another long long answer.
Great
Tell I'm a
answers, great
writer.
answers. It works. What are you interested in exploring next? I know that we were talking a little bit about academia, so anything that you want to say about that, or kind of your creative mission, and maybe items on the checklist that you'd like to make sure you accomplish?
I am. Well, I feel like if I say this, maybe I'm jinxing myself and just kind of announcing to the writing community, this is what I'm going to do, and then I don't actually do it, and then I'll have to backtrack and say, Jason, go back and erase that bit.
That's right. It's totally editable. Absolutely.
No, that's cool. I am considering doing a PhD in creative writing, and that there is a thesis that I have in mind and a creative project that I have in mind. So that is something that I would love to do. I love research. I love going down rabbit holes, and just the idea of having that support and that framework and being in that environment with um, so many other creatives. That's really exciting. Um, yeah, so that's one. The other thing is that there is like a historical horror novel that I'm working on that yeah, I'd love to pull that together and see if I can get it to work. Yeah.
Right. And I know that there's all sorts of research that goes into that process too of a historical narrative.
Yeah, it's when I started going into it, I was like, oh, this is a great idea, and then just realizing just how much research goes into any kind of historical fiction. I was like, oh, talk about jumping in with both feet, but it I do find it really inspirational. History has so many rabbit holes to go down, and so much weirdness and strangeness. It's like that people have been strange and weird and driven and haunted forever and ever. So it's really interesting to go into that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, if I'm a listener out there, where can I go and find out more about your work and follow along and see what is coming out and enjoy those things that have already been shared with the world?
If you head to my website, geneveflynn.com.au, that's pretty much got all of the information of like where I'll be if I'm at a conference or if I'm like doing a podcast like this, if you want to listen to me rabbit on, or also like a list of all my publications and what I've got coming up. So that's probably the best place. And it also has links to my social media. So if anyone wants to, come and chat with me, you can find me on social medias. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I'm most consistently Facebook, again, Gen Xer. So that's probably
Mhm.
the social media that I find easiest to operate. And that's where I'm most consistently. But I do love sharing lots of other authors' works and things too. So yeah, that would be a good place to find out. If you want to like find lots of wonderful authors as well.
Have we missed anything that you want to make sure to include before we close out?
Um, Maybe like a shout out to like I have a couple of stories out
Mhm.
recently, so I'd love to give it just because I know that the editors of the anthologies and they're doing such great work. So the first one is I have a poem and a short story in Silk and Sinew, a collection of folk horror from the Asian diaspora, edited by Christy Parkowski and published by Bad Ham Books. And that anthology, Christy has done such an incredible job with that, pulling together all these voices, um, and it's kind of like a like the next step, the next iteration of what kind of began with Black Cranes, this interest in Asian horror and Asian voices. So that's really exciting. And I have a short story called I'm Not Myself Today coming out with Darkness Most Foul anthology edited by Elaine Pascal and published by the Godmother of Horror Press. And that's coming out Halloween, I believe. So I just wanted to give those editors and their works a shout out if I could.
Awesome, awesome. Absolutely. Well, I've enjoyed the talk, the pre-talk before we were recording and the talk as we've been recording, and glad to have you back anytime to chat again.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much, Jason.